label them drones. People hear drone, they think kids playing with quadcopters or foreign surveillance. They won't panic.
Today, we are diving into the chilling story of Eric Hastings, a former chief of security at the White House, who claims to have uncovered evidence of extraterrestrial surveillance and a shocking government cover-up. This is a tale of secrecy, betrayal, and the terrifying possibility that humanity is being watched and tested for something far bigger than we can imagine. Eric is now living in an unknown place because he is considered a national traitor. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more mind-blowing stories, and let us know in the comments. Do you think we're alone in the universe? Or is Eric's story the warning we all need to hear? They thought they could silence me, take away my job, my dignity, and everything I'd built over the last 15 years. But they underestimated one thing: my conscience. What I know can't stay hidden. This isn't just about classified files or top-secret briefings. It's about humanity's future and the fact that we may not have one if the truth stays buried. My name is Eric Hastings. For over a decade, I served as the chief of security at the White House. My job was to protect the president, the cabinet, and the sanctity of this nation's highest office. I never broke protocol, never asked too many questions, and always stayed in line. But last December, I stumbled upon a secret so colossal, it shattered the reality I thought I lived in. And that's when they turned on me. It started as just another shift. The White House at night is eerie, a maze of marble halls and muted lights, where the faint hum of security systems is the only sound. I was stationed outside the Situation Room, a post I'd stood at countless times before. The president was in there, along with his senior advisors and a few faces I didn't recognize. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the tension. Normally, even in crises, there's a rhythm to these meetings. Staffers shuffling in and out, aides whispering instructions. But that night, no one moved. The door stayed sealed, and the voices inside grew sharper. At first, I told myself to tune it out. Protocol was clear. I was there to guard, not listen. But then I caught a snippet of conversation that stopped me cold. "We're not dealing with terrestrial technology," someone said. My ears perked up. I couldn't help it. That phrase, it wasn't one I'd ever heard in briefings or meetings before. I leaned a little closer to the door, careful not to trip the cameras. The Secretary of Defense spoke next, his voice calm but laced with fear. "These objects have been in our skies for decades, but they're getting bolder. We've seen them over nuclear sites, military bases, even civilian infrastructure. This isn't reconnaissance anymore, it's preparation." Another voice, this one I recognized as the National Security Advisor, cut in. "Our attempts to engage have failed. Fighter jets report system malfunctions the moment they get close. Even drones we send after them lose connection. It's like they're toying with us." Then the president spoke, his tone grave. "We've known for years that we weren't alone. But what we're seeing now? It's coordinated. They're testing us, our defenses, our vulnerabilities." I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't a conversation about foreign adversaries or rogue nations. They were talking about something bigger. For the next hour, I stood there, piecing together the horrifying truth. The objects they were discussing weren't drones in the conventional sense. They were what the team called interstellar reconnaissance units, crafts of unknown origin, moving with precision and speed that defied physics. Here's what they admitted. The drones weren't using propulsion systems we could detect. Some seemed to hover silently for hours, while others zipped through the air at impossible speeds. They appeared near critical locations, nuclear facilities, power grids, even major water reservoirs, almost as if mapping our most important resources. Attempts to shoot them down had failed. Missiles veered off course, jets lost radar, and even directed energy weapons had no effect. Then came the kicker. The Director of National Intelligence dropped a bombshell. These aren't new. The earliest records we have go back to the 1940s. Roswell was just the beginning. The conversation turned to damage control. How could they keep the public calm if this ever got out? That's when I realized how deep the cover-up went. Label them drones, someone suggested. People hear drone. They think kids playing with quadcopters or foreign surveillance. They won't panic. And if someone leaks it, asked the Secretary of State. We discredit them, another voice replied. Make them look like a conspiracy nut. If that doesn't work, we shut them down, permanently. My stomach churned. It was clear that no one in that room cared about solving the problem. Their priority was keeping it quiet. Over the weeks that followed, I started piecing together more details. Here's what I learned. These drones aren't just an American problem. Reports have come in from the UK, Russia, China, and even remote parts of South America. The only common thread? They focus on strategic locations. Many sightings occur near nuclear plants and power grids. Some advisors believe these crafts are studying how we generate and store energy, possibly for replication or sabotage. There's a classified belief among intelligence officials that the drones aren't autonomous. They're deployed from larger crafts, motherships, that remain hidden, possibly underwater or in low orbit. Scattered reports hint that these beings might not just be watching. There are whispers, unconfirmed but persistent, of disappearances near drone hotspots. Could they be abducting people for study? The day after that meeting, everything changed. My clearance was revoked. I was escorted off the premises without explanation. They said I was a security risk, but I knew the truth. I'd overheard too much. They stripped me of my pension, my health benefits, even my reputation. Colleagues I'd worked with for years stopped returning my calls. It was like I didn't exist. When they escorted me out of the White House, it felt like a bad dream. The people I had trusted, colleagues, mentors, even friends, were the ones locking me out. But deep down, I knew it was coming. I had heard too much. The real nightmare began the moment I stepped off the grounds. The next few days were a blur. My bank accounts were frozen, my email and phone stopped working, and every connection I had disappeared overnight. It wasn't just a dismissal, it was an erasure. I had gone from being the chief of security to a ghost. And then they came after my family. I hadn't even told my wife, Amanda, about what I'd overheard. I thought keeping her in the dark would protect her. But 3 days after my termination, she called me in tears. "There's a black SUV outside," she said, her voice shaking. "It's been parked there for hours. Eric, what's going on?" My chest tightened. I told her to lock the doors, close the blinds, and stay away from the windows. But before I could hang up, she whispered, "They're coming up the driveway." My mind raced. I told her to grab our daughter, Lily, and head to the basement. I'd be there soon. When I arrived at our house, it was dark. The SUV was gone, but the front door was ajar. My stomach churned as I stepped inside, calling out for Amanda and Lily. "We're here," Amanda whispered, peeking out from the basement door. Relief flooded over me, but it didn't last. On the kitchen counter, there was a folded piece of paper with a single line written on it. "Stay quiet, or they won't be safe." I grabbed the note and burned it in the sink. That was their warning, but I knew it wouldn't stop there. If I didn't disappear, and fast, they'd come back. Next time, it wouldn't just be a threat. We left that night, taking only what we could fit in a single duffel bag. I didn't tell Amanda where we were going, and she didn't ask. The less she knew, the safer she'd be. I used what little cash I had left to buy a beat-up station wagon off Craigslist and drove west, sticking to back roads and avoiding major highways. For days, we lived like fugitives, sleeping in motels under fake names and paying only in cash. I avoided using my phone, knowing it was likely being tracked. Every time I saw a black SUV, my heart skipped a beat. Then came the call. It was a blocked number, but I knew who it was before I even answered. "Eric Hastings," a calm voice said on the other end. "You've caused quite a mess." I didn't respond. "You think you're protecting your family by running?" The voice continued. "We know where you are. We know where you'll go next. The only reason they're still alive is because we allow it." My hands trembled, but I forced myself to speak. "What do you want?" "Silence," the voice replied. "Disappear. No interviews, no leaks. If you try to expose us, your family won't make it through the night." The line went dead. I knew then that I couldn't keep running. I had to vanish completely, not just for my safety, but for Amanda and Lily's. A former colleague from my early military days owed me a favor. He was off the grid, living in a remote cabin deep in the Rockies, where cell service and surveillance couldn't reach. We drove for 2 days straight, only stopping for gas and food. When we finally arrived, the cabin was as isolated as promised. Miles from the nearest town, surrounded by dense forest. "This is where we stay," I told Amanda, "until I figure out what to do." She didn't argue, but I could see the fear in her eyes. I promised her we'd be safe, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. Life at the cabin was quiet, almost too quiet. I spent my days scanning the woods for signs of intruders, and my nights poring over everything I'd learned in the White House. I needed to understand what I was up against, who was pulling the strings, and why they were so desperate to silence me. Every so often, I'd hear helicopters overhead, or spot what looked like drones hovering far in the distance. They were searching, but they hadn't found us. Not yet. Then, one night, Lily came to me with a question that broke my heart. "Daddy," she whispered, clutching her teddy bear, "why are the bad men after us?" I didn't know how to answer her. As weeks turned into months, I started piecing together the larger picture. Through old contacts and stolen glimpses at classified files, I learned that the people chasing us weren't just from the government. They were part of something bigger, an interagency task force tied to the Pentagon, the CIA, and private defense contractors. Their mission wasn't just to cover up extraterrestrial surveillance, it was to prepare for collaboration. That's when it hit me. The interstellar reconnaissance units weren't just observing us, they were working with us. I found a document buried deep in an encrypted database, a file labeled Project Umbra. It detailed secret meetings between human officials and extraterrestrial beings dating back to the 1950s. The terms were chilling. Earth's governments would allow limited alien surveillance in exchange for technological advancements. Human lives, those abducted or experimented on, were collateral damage. The ultimate goal, integration, though the document was vague on what that meant. I realized then why they wanted me silenced. This wasn't just about aliens spying on us. It was about a secret alliance, one that put humanity at risk. I'm still here for now. The cabin is safe, but I know it's only a matter of time before they find us. My family is everything, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect them. But the world needs to know the truth. If you're reading this, it means I've found a way to get this message out. Stay vigilant, watch the skies, and most importantly, question everything. Because the bad men aren't just after me, they're after all of us. But I couldn't stay silent. The public deserves to know what's happening. The government's narrative about drones is a lie. These objects aren't man-made, and their intentions aren't benign. Here's my theory. They're studying us, testing our defenses, monitoring our technology, and waiting for the right moment to act. This isn't just surveillance, it's preparation for something bigger. Think about it. If a civilization can travel across galaxies, what else are they capable of? If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done it already. So why wait? The answer terrifies me. They're not here to destroy, they're here to control. And the worst part? The people in power aren't doing anything to stop it. They're too scared to admit the truth. If you're reading this, know that I might not be around much longer. They'll try to silence me just like they've silenced others. But remember, the skies don't lie. Watch them, record what you see, question everything. Because one day soon, those objects won't just be watching, they'll act. And by then, it might be too late. I've asked myself 1,000 times if this is the right thing to do. Every instinct screams at me to protect my family, to stay hidden in the shadows. But the more I think about it, the more I realize hiding won't save them. It won't save anyone. The truth is too big, too dangerous to keep buried. You might think I'm doing this out of revenge, that I'm bitter because the government took everything from me, my career, my pension, my dignity. But this isn't about me. It's about all of us. It's about what's coming. After months in hiding, I finally put the pieces together. The objects in our skies, those so-called drones, aren't here by accident. They're part of a larger operation, one that's been in motion for decades. The government calls them interstellar reconnaissance units. But the term itself is misleading, a calculated euphemism. These aren't just alien surveillance devices, they're precursors. Probes sent ahead of something much larger. How do I know this? Because I've seen the classified reports. Before they erased me, I had access to files that most people in the government don't even know exist. Those files painted a picture that still haunts me. Pattern recognition. The drones are systematically mapping our planet's most critical systems. Power grids, water supplies, nuclear facilities. They're not just observing, they're creating a tactical map. Technological superiority. Attempts to intercept these objects have failed every time. Fighters lose power, missiles veer off course, and even our most advanced countermeasures are rendered useless. It's as if they're demonstrating their dominance without firing a shot. Global scope. These objects aren't limited to the United States. Similar sightings have been reported in Russia, China, the UK, and South America. And yet, the governments of the world remain silent. Why? Because they're working together to keep this under wraps. This isn't just an American secret. I've uncovered evidence that points to a coordinated effort among the world's superpowers to manage public perception of these phenomena. It's the one thing they've all agreed on. The truth must not reach the public. But why? It's because they believe the public can't handle it. They think revealing the existence of advanced extraterrestrial intelligence would cause mass panic, economic collapse, and the erosion of trust in global institutions. But there's another, darker reason. During my time as Chief of Security, I came across references to a project called Umbra. It was buried deep in a system I shouldn't have had access to. But curiosity got the better of me. What I found shocked me to my core. Contact was made decades ago. The first documented communication with extraterrestrials didn't happen in the 1940s, as some believe, but much earlier. A deal was struck. In exchange for technological advancements, certain governments agreed to allow limited alien activity on Earth. This included surveillance and even biological experiments. Collateral damage. Human lives were part of the bargain. Abductions, disappearances, unexplained phenomena, these weren't accidents. They were the cost of progress. The drones we see now are a reminder of that deal. They're here because we allowed them to be, and now it's too late to take it back. Here's what terrifies me the most, the escalation. Over the last decade, the sightings have become more frequent, more coordinated. What used to be isolated incidents are now global events, and they're happening in places that matter: nuclear facilities, military bases, major cities. I believe we're approaching a tipping point. The reconnaissance phase is ending. Whatever comes next will be far more direct and far more dangerous. I didn't choose this fight. I never wanted to be a whistleblower or a conspiracy theorist. I was a loyal servant of my country, a man who believed in protecting the institutions that keep us safe. But now I see those institutions for what they are, complicit. By staying silent, they've chosen self-preservation over truth. They've chosen to protect their power instead of preparing humanity for what's coming. I can't live with that. People need to know that we're not alone. They need to know that these objects in our skies are not benign. And most importantly, they need to know that their leaders have sold them out. Speaking out hasn't been easy. My family is in hiding because of the threats we've received. Every day, I live with the fear that someone will find us, that a black SUV will pull up outside, and this time, we won't get away. But even if that happens, I'll go to my grave knowing I did the right thing. Because staying silent isn't an option anymore, not when the stakes are this high. If you're reading this, you have a right to know the truth. Look to the skies, pay attention to the patterns, and question everything the government tells you about drones or weather phenomena. The objects out there aren't just watching, they're waiting, and when they act, it will be too late to prepare. Stay vigilant, spread the word, because the only way we stand a chance is if we face this together. This is Eric Hastings, former Chief of Security at the White House, and I'm telling you, the truth is out there, and it's coming for us.